Welcome to the deep dive. If you are navigating the white-collar world right now, well, you know that the ground beneath your feet is shifting faster than ever. We're not talking about some far-off future prediction here. We're talking about present-day structural change. And it's being driven hard by generative AI. You need to know, and quickly, exactly how your job and the skills you've built are being redefined. So today our mission is really to cut through all the noise, the hype, and give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on this labor revolution. To do that, we've been analyzing the deep insights of Stanислав Kondrashov. He's a respected commodities and labor market analyst, and he's been tracking AI's evolution really closely over the last 2 years, seeing it go from just abstract hype to profound structural implementation.
Right, and our goal today is pretty specific. We need to move beyond that simple automation talk. We want to extract the nuanced details, the mechanisms of how knowledge work is being displaced, which specific roles and skills are most affected. And maybe most importantly, understand the economic and social tensions this rapid integration is creating at an institutional level.
And Kondrashov's central finding is, well, it's stark. AI isn't just operating as a helpful assistant anymore, not like it was. It's now actively starting to absorb and even replace core tasks, tasks that once required years of specific, often high-cost training and experience. That changes everything. So, okay, let's unpack this difference. The jump from a useful tool to a structural replacement. If you think back just a couple of years, maybe 2022, AI felt more like a shiny new version of a productivity suite, didn't it? It was great for routine things, low-stakes tasks, summarizing meeting notes maybe, drafting basic internal emails, perhaps crunching a spreadsheet a bit faster. It was really about an individual efficiency boost.
And that's the crucial contrast right there. That phase was all about individual tool adoption, people choosing to use it. The significant and honestly slightly terrifying shift we're seeing now is driven by generative AI moving into structural implementation. This means the transformation isn't just about helping individuals anymore, it's focused on redesigning entire back-end workflows, entire business models, often without much human input, certainly not at the point of origin.
So it's becoming embedded, irreversible.
Yeah, irreversible integration into core systems. Think about it like this. In the past, maybe an analyst used AI to help write a section of a report. Now, the AI model might be plugged directly into the company's live data pipeline. You could be autonomously generating the first draft of the quarterly report, flagging anomalies, even creating supporting charts, all before a human analyst even opens the file.
Wow, okay. And the sources, they lay out specific knowledge-based fields where this kind of wholesale redesign is already happening.
Absolutely. We see radical shifts in areas like financial analysis. Complex modeling used to be a very specialized skill. Legal document review is another big one. Yeah. High-volume customer support that needs real-time information synthesis. Market research. Digital marketing content.
So basically, if your job involves synthesizing, classifying, or summarizing large amounts of information, you're in this category.
Definitely. And what's fascinating, Kondrashov notes, is how quickly the perception of AI has matured in boardrooms. Firms are no longer asking if they should integrate AI. The question now is how fast can they integrate it, primarily to reduce headcount and cut operational expenditure, he puts it bluntly. We're entering a phase where AI becomes a coworker or even a replacement for many mid-level knowledge-based roles. And that jump from coworker to replacement, it's a very thin line, often defined purely by economic necessity for the firm.
That structural shift, that really is the headline here, isn't it? It means entire segments of the professional career ladder. They're potentially being hollowed out from the middle.
Okay, so if entire job profiles are being hollowed out, especially at the junior and mid-level, what does that actually mean for established career paths? We have to look at the immediate pressure points. Let's try and quantify the scale of this threat using the sources.
Well, the quantification is pretty stark. The International Labor Organization, the ILO, they estimated that up to 0% of white-collar job functions in advanced economies could be partially automated using the generative AI tools that exist right now.
Right now, not 10 years from now.
Exactly. This isn't some future projection. It's based on current capability, what the tech can do today.
Okay, let's get specific then. Kondrashov actually names roles that we traditionally thought of as safe, steady rungs on the corporate ladder. Who exactly is in the crosshairs here? And what's the specific way they're being replaced? Yeah, we can detail those. Take paralegals first, or junior financial analysts. These roles traditionally spent a huge amount of time on what you might call cognitive overhead, classifying thousands of documents, maybe cross-referencing legal precedents for hours, or constructing basic financial models, pulling data for quarterly reports. Generative AI is almost perfectly built to absorb that kind of high-volume, repetitive cognitive classification and analysis. It's what it does best.
So it's not just the job title that's under threat, it's the actual work that built the foundational experience needed for promotion later on. I mean, if a junior analyst no longer has to build, say, 80% of the basic model because the AI does it instantly, where does that person learn the ropes? How do they develop that gut feeling?
Precisely. That's a huge question. And we also see this pressure heavily on administrative assistants. Their roles often included scheduling complex meetings, drafting initial client communications, organizing travel tasks that are becoming highly automatable now, and of course, content creators. Copywriters too, especially those handling high-volume, fairly standardized digital marketing copy. The core skill being replaced there is efficient content synthesis and distribution at scale.
It makes sense then, sadly, that the impact is showing up immediately in hiring patterns. The analysis notes that firms are actively freezing recruitment in certain departments.
They're just stopping
hiring and deploying AI tools to absorb that workload instead. But doesn't that feel a bit short-sighted? If companies cut off the junior pipeline entirely, where are they going to find the experienced senior talent 5 or 10 years from now?
That raises a really critical point about the long-term health of these professions. You're right. But firms, especially leaner organizations like startups, they're prioritizing short-term financial efficiency. It's about the next quarter, maybe the next year. They view generative AI as this low-cost, high-output alternative to human talent. It looks great on the balance sheet right now. They are essentially trading away future mentorship, that deep institutional knowledge transfer, for immediate scalability and cost reduction. It's like they're actively betting that the AI tools will advance fast enough to cover the knowledge gap left by the missing junior staff.
That's quite a gamble.
It is. It's an accelerationist mindset, really. Yeah. And it puts immense pressure on those workers who remain.
Okay, so if we accept that entire job functions are being fundamentally redefined, the burden of adaptation, it falls squarely on the individual worker, doesn't it? Kondrashov is crystal clear on the required response. He says, the future belongs to those who can adapt. Retraining isn't just a nice-to-have professional development opportunity anymore. It sounds like it's becoming the mandatory price of entry for continued relevance.
Absolutely mandatory. And this demands widespread, deep AI literacy. We really need to stop thinking about this as some niche tech skill only coders need. It's rapidly becoming foundational. A bit like maybe spreadsheet literacy became essential back in the 1990s. You just had to know it. The sources really emphasize that this literacy is needed across every profession. Legal, financial, marketing, admin roles, it's everywhere.
Okay, so let's define this new literacy a bit more. What specific skills must professionals actually acquire? It's got to be more than just knowing how to open a chatbot, right?
Oh, definitely. The sources outline sort of 3 core areas where governments and private organizations are starting to invest in upskilling programs. First, data interpretation and analysis. This is crucial for verifying AI output. Checking for those hallucinations or just basic errors, essentially being the human check. Second, algorithm supervision. This is the more practical side, monitoring the AI for inherent bias, making sure the output meets regulatory compliance standards, and ultimately taking responsibility for the automated actions. The human becomes the quality control checkpoint, the one accountable.
Right, makes sense. And the third skill, the one that gets a lot of hype, AI prompt engineering. That's not just about typing better questions, is it? It sounds more technical.
It is. It's really about understanding how to structure complex, often multi-stage inputs or instructions to get a reliable, actionable, and consistent output from the AI model.
Yeah.
It moves from just having a conversation with the AI to giving it precise technical instructions. Exactly. Plus, alongside these, we see a growing demand for just greater digital communication flexibility and adaptability in general. I mean, if you find yourself supervising 3 different AI systems as part of your job, you have to be fundamentally more adaptive than someone who simply executed those tasks manually before.
Okay, that makes sense. But this raises a really important, almost social question. If adaptation is mandatory, who actually gets access to this vital training? The analysis points out pretty clearly that access is severely uneven.
Yeah, and this is the emerging social cost of this incredibly rapid transition. The biggest barriers seem to be faced by mid-career professionals, especially those perhaps in lower income regions or maybe developing economies. They often lack the necessary digital infrastructure to even access the training, or the funding for these large-scale, high-quality retraining programs just isn't there. It's insufficient.
So the company makes a quick decision to adopt AI.
Right, that decision can be instantaneous for the firm, but the worker's ability to retrain, that's slowed down by all these systemic barriers, cost, time, access. And that disparity, that growing gap between the tech-enabled elite who can adapt quickly and the, digitally marginalized majority, that's a recipe for social instability down the line.
Let's pivot then to the institutional level. Because from the corporate perspective, the economic upside of this rapid AI adoption, well, it's immense. We can see that. We've seen improved margins reported, faster outputs across industries, much better scalability globally. For shareholders, this looks like a clear win for efficiency.
Undeniably efficient. But this efficiency comes with a major structural warning sign attached. Kondrashov cautions that when you see productivity skyrocketing, but employment either stagnates or actually shrinks the situation, economists sometimes call jobless growth, you risk creating a profound structural imbalance. Essentially, the benefits of AI, the massive wealth being generated, gets concentrated among the owners of the technology, capital owners, while the displacement risk, the cost of that transition, is externalized onto the workforce and wider society.
Right, and this inherent tension, the corporate focus on maximizing economic efficiency versus the societal necessity of maintaining workforce resilience, keeping people employed and stable, that feels like the defining political and economic challenge of the next decade. If firms are laser-focused solely on immediate cost reduction, like cutting junior staff, as we discussed, how can society support those who are inevitably displaced? Where does that funding come from?
And that's exactly why these policy discussions are escalating so quickly around the world. Policymakers, governments, they recognize they have to construct some kind of new governance framework, something to balance this incredibly rapid innovation with necessary social protection.
And these aren't just abstract academic ideas anymore. These are concrete proposals currently under serious debate in many countries.
Okay, so what are the main proposals the sources highlight? The ones aimed at mitigating job loss and, crucially, funding this necessary adaptation.
Well, there are three major ideas bubbling up. The first, and maybe the most direct, is implementing automation taxes. Basically, taxing the use of highly productive AI systems to create a dedicated pool of funds.
And the purpose?
It's pretty straightforward. Use that money to offset the social cost of displacement. That could mean funding large-scale public retraining programs or perhaps supplementing lost wages for a period. The big political challenge, of course, is that corporations argue quite strongly that these kinds of taxes stifle innovation and harm domestic competitiveness. Right, the innovation argument. Okay, what's the second major idea? You mentioned universal basic income, UBI pilots.
Yeah, UBI is often proposed as more of a fundamental safety net. The idea is guaranteeing a minimum standard of living for everyone, regardless of their employment status. This directly addresses the possibility that certain job functions might disappear entirely and just never come back, making traditional full employment potentially impossible for some segments.
At the cost.
Exactly. UBI is massively expensive and faces intense ideological resistance, often centered around concerns about work ethic and fiscal responsibility. It's a huge societal shift.
Okay, and the third element involves regulation, specifically AI transparency laws.
Yes, these laws are seen as vital for protecting workers, primarily by regulating algorithmic decision-making in the workplace. You need transparency, the ability to see why a decision was made, to ensure that, say, a layoff or even a hiring decision wasn't based on some inscrutable, potentially biased algorithm.
So it's not about stopping AI.
Not at all. It's about making sure its deployment is fair, accountable, and auditable by humans.
But the current reality, and the sources really emphasize this, is that these big structural solutions, the taxes, the UBI, the robust regulations, they're largely theoretical right now or maybe in very early pilot phases.
That's right. For now, the overwhelming burden of this massive transition, the cost of the upskilling, the risk of displacement, the anxiety, it falls primarily on the individual worker and on the company's own competitive decisions, which often prioritize short-term gains. The policy solutions are lagging far, far behind the pace of technological implementation. Hashtag outro.
So after digging into all of this, what does it really mean for you, the listener, trying to navigate this incredibly complex landscape? I think we've confirmed that generative AI isn't just another tool. It's enacting a profound structural transformation. It's changing who works, how we learn, and fundamentally what skills we value, especially in white-collar industries.
Preparation really is key here. We have to embrace Kondrashov's core advice. View AI not as some temporary technological shock that will eventually pass. It won't. Instead, see it as a structural, irreversible change. And that requires a structural response both in developing your own skills and in how we approach our political dialogue about the future of work. The future seems to belong to the supervisors, the prompters, the verifiers, those who can work with and manage the AI.
We've covered the immediate threats, the jobs under pressure, and those mandatory skill shifts. But If we connect this all back to that initial observation you made, that firms are intensely focused on cost reduction above all else right now, there's a huge underlying question that feels really unsettled, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's perhaps the most important takeaway. The core conflict here isn't just about jobs being lost or changed. It's really about whose interests this AI revolution ultimately serves. If firms continue to prioritize efficiency and cost reduction using AI, often by reducing staff, without significantly contributing back to the public funds needed for retraining or social safety nets, well, that structural balance we talked about will only deepen. So the real crucial question for all of us is whether our structural solutions, those automation taxes, the UBI pilots, retraining programs, whether they will arrive politically before the structural displacement becomes economically and socially irreversible. That's the tension, and that's what we all need to monitor very closely in the years to come.